Have you always been driven?
Absolutely. I remember even back in middle school, when everyone else has gone home and I'd be still there doing circuit training in the sports hall. So I think I've always been driven, and I think I'm a very competitive person, but I think actually I'm competing against myself most of the time. So I always set out and want to beat kind of what I want to do. So it's always trying to prove to myself, can I actually achieve that? So I think I've always been driven from that perspective.
Is one more of a passion, Javelin or business?
I wouldn't say one is more of a passion than the other. I've done Javelin since I'm 9 years old, so obviously I've done that for a lot longer. So I think deep down it has a bit more meaning. But when it actually comes down to it, they're both so different. So in Javelin, I'm training my physical body to be the best I can. And then in the startup company, I'm learning every single day. So they're both very different and actually balance out perfectly as well.
What makes you go the extra mile?
Just to prove to myself that I can actually achieve what I want to. So for me, going the extra mile just pushes me closer towards the goals I want to achieve. But I think for me, it's not just going the extra mile, it's going a smarter mile. So I think you can always put in a lot of work, but I think it's actually making sure that work is smart and you're not overcooking it.
Do your sporting achievements and training help you in your life as an entrepreneur? And if so, how?
I think not so much my achievements, but actually the mistakes and failures I've had. So I've had a lot of mistakes and failures in my sporting career, quite significant ones as well. So I think actually the big injuries that I've had and taking time out from the sport and trying to learn from the mistakes I made. So I think every time I made a mistake and I had an injury or I failed at a competition, there was always a reason behind it. So for me, the ability to analyse that, realise where I went wrong, so it might be honesty or not learning from the right person and actually going out and seeking that help. And so I think actually carrying that over to a business where you're going to make a lot of mistakes, especially in the early stage, and then being able to sit back and actually analyse what went wrong, why, but then actually being able to use that to then improve next time and not make the same mistakes again.
What rules do you live by?
So I don't live these rules strictly, but there's 3 rules. The first one is commitment. Whatever I do, I want to give everything that I can. I don't see the point in doing things with half measures. Number 2, I need to create an impact in what I do. So I want to be in a job where I can control what I'm doing and I can forge my own path to success. And number 3 is enjoyment. I want to be able to enjoy everything that I do. I don't see the point in living for the weekends. I think you only live once and I really want to fulfill that time.
How do you define success?
So my success is defined by the goals that I set out. So I often set out very small goals and they can be daily, but then I also have large goals and they can be career-long goals. So for me, success is actually achieving those goals, but I think setting out the small ones means that I can achieve successes day in, day out and not ultimately just waiting until the final end goal to get that success.
What is your biggest fear?
My biggest fear is not actually achieving what I set out to. I have career-long goals and for me that's my fuel, so that's what pushes me every day to do what I do. So I think ultimately if I couldn't actually achieve that or I never did, I think that's definitely my biggest fear.
What has been your most satisfying moment in sport and in business?
My most satisfying moment has to be when I threw over 80 metres for the first time this May. I'd spent the past 18 months out from the sport with a serious injury. And there's a lot of changes during that period. I swapped coach and we trained basically every single day, twice a day, and so that was really tough 18 months. And so to be able to come out and throw over 80 metres, which ultimately is quite a big defining distance and kind of sets you apart from the rest. So that was definitely my biggest achievement.
And what would be the most satisfying moment in business?
So obviously we're very early doors, so we haven't kind of achieved that much. But I think mine was actually really early on, and it was when we sat down with our designers and they actually gave us our logo for the first time. And when I first saw it, and I instantly smiled and thought, wow, like, you know, our idea is actually now a physical thing. So yeah, that was a big one.
Do you believe there's a pattern or formula to success?
Absolutely. I think for me, I've outlined 3 that I think are really important. Number 1 is dedication. I think you need to be able to sacrifice a lot of time and effort into achieving what you want to do. I think you can't achieve success without dedicating time and effort towards that. Number 2, ultimately I think you have to be smart. Not necessarily intelligent, but I think you have to be educated in terms of knowing what you're doing and knowing what you want to achieve and how you can actually get to that point. So I think actually making smart decisions and doing the right things along the way will definitely help. And number 3 is also finding help. There's been countless times I've tried to do things on my own, and it's only the last few years when I've actually realised that there's a lot of people out there that know a lot more than you. And I think actually going to those people, understanding where they went wrong and using their experiences to help you along your journey.
Where do you see yourself in 10 years' time?
Still working as hard as I am now, hopefully competing at Olympic level in Javelin and hopefully with a few more medals, and surrounded by a great circle of family and friends.